In Proverbs 25, verses 16 to 28, the overall counsel is that God's wisdom gives us social sensitivity. It makes us attuned to people's emotions, and it allows us to read the room and determine the right time and the right way to say or do certain things. In verse 16, he sets up the principle that too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. Even though honey tastes amazing, if you have too much of it, it makes you sick. And he comes back around to that point in verse 27. It is not good to eat much honey. And then he takes this principle and applies it to our social interactions as well. For instance, in verse 17, let your foot rarely be in your neighbor's house, or he will become weary of you and hate you. Obviously, friendship and spending time with our neighbors is a good thing. But just like eating too much honey, it can become a bad thing if it's not practiced in moderation. It's been said that house guests are like fish. After a few days, they start to stink. Now, obviously, the one showing hospitality should have a good attitude and be willing to sacrifice, to help those in need, or to allow their friend to stay with them. But the point of the proverb is that if you are the one staying in your neighbor's house, you need to do what you can to get out of there, to get back on your own feet and not rely on their hospitality forever. Or if you're staying and having conversation late at night and it's 10 o'clock and your host's eyes are drooping because they're ready to go to bed, read the room and get out. God's wisdom gives us the social sensitivity to realize, okay, they've welcomed me for a long time, but after a certain point, I'm going to overstay my welcome and I need to let them get back to living their own lives. In verse 18, we need the social sensitivity to understand how damaging bearing false witness against someone really is. It's a huge deal because lying about someone in court could cause their death. You might as well beat them over the head with a club or stab them through the heart with a sword or shoot them with an arrow. Likewise, in verse 19, when someone sends us to do something, we need the sensitivity to realize I need to follow through on my commitment because this person is counting on me. And if they're in trouble and they need me to come through for them, I can't leave them hanging. In verse 20, we need the social sensitivity to realize someone has a troubled heart and they're really sad. And if we try to cheer them up with happy songs, we're just going to make things worse. It's like ripping someone's jacket off on a cold day or like vinegar on soda. Now, I had to look this up because I didn't think they had soda back then, but that's because I'm thinking of Coke and Dr. Pepper. But soda was actually a cleaning powder. It refers to natron, a naturally occurring alkaline mineral used for washing clothes and cleaning things and getting grease out of things. But vinegar is acidic, and so if you mix an acid and an alkaline, it starts to bubble and to fizz and to be agitated. So when someone is sad and we start to tell them, hey, look on the bright side, everything's gonna be great, at least it's not as bad as X, Y, and Z, we are agitating their heart and their soul and making things worse. And if we do make things worse and we're in conflict with someone, God's wisdom gives us the social sensitivity to realize the best way to diffuse this situation is not just to apologize for our behavior, but to show them acts of kindness so that they'll have burning coals heaped on their head, which is probably a reference to a burning conviction that they should forgive you. They almost have this painful sense of shame for staying mad at you, and hopefully they'll repent of that, and your act of kindness will turn an enemy into a friend. In verse 23, apparently most of the wind that brought rain in Palestine came from the west, and north winds didn't usually bring rain with it, but sometimes they could, and so it was an unexpected thing. Likewise, if we're talking about people behind their backs, we may think that there's no consequences to that because the person's never going to find out. But just like a north wind can unexpectedly bring rain, so too, this person can unexpectedly show up at your doorstep furious with you for what you said about them behind their back. In verse 24, you need the social sensitivity as a wife to recognize you are living with this person and you cannot be nagging and being contentious and getting in arguments and fights over every little thing because there's no escape for your spouse. In verse 25, we need the sensitivity to tell if someone is discouraged and recognize we can lift them up through good news. Now, this doesn't contradict verse 20 because that verse is about sadness. This person is discouraged and and weary and may not really see anything good about their situation, and they need someone to come along and help them see what they can't. In verse 26, we need the social sensitivity to realize if I, as a righteous person, compromise on my morals, I'm destroying my influence in society. People who come to me to find life-giving water will only find polluted, muddy water, and I won't be able to help people at all. In verse 27, some people, instead of relying on others to give them glory and praise, they seek out praise for themselves. They go fishing for compliments or bragging about their achievements. And ironically, in searching out their own praise and glory, they end up with none because people don't want to praise someone who's arrogant or who's obviously manipulating them into giving them praise. And in verse 28, if you have no control over your spirit, you have no defenses, and everything people say about you will affect you, and you'll be overly socially sensitive so that you're constantly caring about what other people think about you and what they say about you because you have no strong sense of self and security in the Lord. So the challenge for us is to raise our social awareness. When we are in situations or conversations, we need to not just think about what we're saying and how we're saying it, but also when we are saying it. What is the emotional state of the person that we're talking to? What time is it? Is it so late at night that they can't even focus on what I'm saying to them? Are they in the middle of doing something so they can't really give me their full attention? Is there someone standing next to them that if I bring up a subject in conversation would make them uncomfortable for bringing up in front of them? Are they slowly walking backwards while I'm speaking to them, which signals to me that they don't want to be in this conversation anymore and they need to go? Am I holding people hostage to my conversation when clearly they're uncomfortable and they want to talk about something else? Are two people in deep conversation? If so, I need to give them time to finish that conversation before I go and insert myself and barge in and say, hey, what you guys talking about? God's wisdom gives us the ability to empathize and put ourselves in someone else's shoes so that we can anticipate what they might be thinking or feeling about what we're saying and when we're saying it. We can ask, if I were in their shoes, would I want one of my house guests to stay past midnight? Now, if you say to your hosts, boy, I know it's getting late, I should probably let you guys go, and they insist that you stay, well, then that's okay. But at least have the sensitivity to recognize that too much of a good thing can become a bad thing, and also poorly timed good things can become bad things. And this points to Christ because he was very socially sensitive to the needs of others in the moment. When Lazarus died and Mary and Martha are in tears, Jesus could have sung songs of joy to them and said, hey, don't worry, I'm about to raise him from the dead. But instead, he wept right along with them. He didn't try to cheer them up. He just comforted them by walking together with them in their sorrow. When he sends the disciples on the limited commission to the Jews in Matthew chapter 10, he said in verse 14, whoever does not receive you nor heed your words, as you go out of that house or that city, shake the dust off your feet. Jesus did not want his disciples to force the gospel on people, but if they were uncomfortable socially with them being in their home because they didn't believe their message, Jesus says, you've overstayed your welcome and you move on. He tells people in Luke 14 not to take the highest seat for themselves, which is a way of seeking out one's glory, because those who exalt themselves will be humbled. And finally, when Jesus saw that his disciples were hungry and tired, he said to them in Mark 6, come away with me and rest a while. Jesus knew how to read the room, and his wisdom gave him the social sensitivity to not only know what to say, but to know how to say it and at the right time based on what people needed in the moment. And of course, the greatest act of social sensitivity in history was seeing that we were weary souls in dire need of good news from a distant land. And so Jesus left the distant land of heaven to come and provide the refreshing waters of the good news of the gospel, that he was coming to give his life as a ransom. And in so doing, he dumped hot coals on the heads of his enemies so that we would see his act of love and kindness toward us and repent and become his friends. Jesus read the room from heaven heaven and saw how discouraged and hopeless we were without him. And he came to give us something far sweeter than honey that we could never have too much of. And that's a relationship with him. So as we call on God for wisdom today, our prayer is, Father, grant me the wisdom to be socially aware of the needs of others, so that like Christ, I can do whatever I can and make whatever sacrifices necessary to help meet the needs of my neighbor.